world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes. An elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad.
Welcome back to the IP Squad and our ongoing investigation of the Alien Predator franchise or franchises, depending on what episode it is. I'm John Campbell. My partner in this investigation, of course, Mike Ergoni.
It's true. Look, the seeds are all there. This will never stop being a separate franchise from here on out in my brain. It's just that sometimes they won't acknowledge the other one.
Well, it's an interesting thing because this is our we've gone through these eras of this franchise, right? We had Alien, then Predator, then Alien again, then the two of them together, and now this week is where they've once more separated. And we have
for better, for worse, yeah. And this week for the better, in my opinion.
Agreed. I think we are, I think we are both big defenders of this movie. I really like 2010's Predators.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the first time I have a great affinity for Predator 2, as people know, but this is the one that everything about this feels like we're getting back on track, baby.
Yeah, it's interesting to go back and read some of the contemporary reviews of this film because in hindsight, a lot of the complaints look like things that a movie like Prey will do later to like wild acclaim.
Well, because it's interesting that when I say it's like we're getting back on track, baby, it's so interesting that like a few years later, the Predator franchise will once again make a movie to go, we're getting back on track, baby. But I will say, I do think this and Prey are both very consciously trying to harken back to the vibes of that first movie.
Yeah, totally.
This one, much more so in the aesthetics. Prey, much more so in the tone.
Yeah, I think this one is trying to go for the tone that's like sort of bounces back and forth between Predator 1 and Predator 2, right?
Yes.
Like it's maybe not as quippy as Predator 2 because Predator 2 is the result of a very specific era in action filmmaking.
Yeah.
Well,
it's very interesting. I think right off the bat we should say a lot of the credit of this movie, fairly or unfairly, I don't know because obviously he didn't direct it, but so much of this is, as the poster declares, Robert Rodriguez presents Predators.
Yeah, even though he did not direct, he doesn't have any writing credits on it.
He's a producer, and it was his pitch.
Yeah, the story that is told on Wikipedia, so take this for the grain of salt that it is that apparently he had done like a treatment for a third Predator movie at the start of his career when he was doing like Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Oh, when he was doing Desperado.
When he was doing Desperado.
So mid 90s when he's like the hot thing and everybody, I'm sure he's just taking meetings with everybody because he's new on the scene.
So that treatment ended up in a drawer somewhere. And then decades later, an executive found it and was like, oh, hey, you know what? We own Predator. We should do something. And I've got this thing that Robert Rodriguez wrote. Well, hey, Robert, are you interested in doing a Predator movie? And he was like, nah, man, I'm busy doing, what was he doing at the time? Spy Kids?
Yeah, I think he might have been doing Spy Kids. Something, I don't know, one of those things he shot in his backyard or whatever.
Look, a lot of this movie was shot in his backyard too.
No, I mean it shows you the power he has. That he was like, yeah, I'll do it if you can shoot it in the green screen studio that I own and down by my house. Because I mean, famously, he is a guy who's like, I don't really want to go anywhere, and I have the money that I basically have just built my own entire film studio in Austin, so I never have to leave home. Which actually sounds pretty awesome.
there's something like 60% of the movie had to be filmed there so that they could benefit from some tax credits that Texas gives to film studios. So like, yeah, 60% of this movie was shot or like produced in the aircraft hangar that Robert Rodriguez owned and is in fact a like film studio.
Yeah. That's like a mile from his house. Because once again, he's like, hey, there's like an old abandoned air hangar. Can I just have that and put up a bunch of green screens? I mean, like all of Sin City was shot there. But I'll give the credit to this and the filming. I can't tell. This movie looks really good.
I think this movie looks great.
Yeah.
There are a few dodgy CG moments, specifically with like the dogs.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think this movie looks great.
Yeah. I mean, but I do think it's an interesting example of when you're talking about this sort of feeling like some of the tone of the old school movie is that this pitch, at least the initial pitch, was written in like 1994.
Right.
And yeah, I do love it. At the time, they were like, nah, man, we can't do that. And then just enough time passed that they're like, oh, shit, what are we going to do? Hey, wait, isn't there, what's this? And then they're like.
And from what I was reading, like this movie doesn't actually like super resemble the thing that Robert Rodriguez pitched. But like ideas from that were like grafted onto what this movie
because his
became.
Pitch was this kind of setup, but it's Schwarzenegger.
Right.
Which would make sense at the time. It was like, what if Arnold got recruited? I mean, from what I gather, his was more gladiatorial in nature. But the idea of the basic idea of grabbing, Earth's best killers and bringing them for some sort of hunt or competition. But yes, it would have been Arnold's Dutch that would have been.
Can you imagine Jingle All the Way era Arnold in like this like brutal the most dangerous game style like action film? That'd be pretty great.
I would have, of course I would have loved that movie. I will say, and I'm sure you remember this, when they announced who the lead of this was, there was a lot of like, oh fuck no, what? That string bean? Are you kidding me?
I unabashedly love Adrian Brody in this film.
I unabashedly love Adrian Brody, period. But yes, in this movie, this movie is filled with so many of my favorite actors. But I'm a massive Adrian Brody fan. And I will say, this is, I think, I've always gotten the sense from him, because every once in a while he does something like this, where it's like, oh, you want to be like an action guy. He's one of these guys who's like, obviously, Academy Award winning, acclaimed. He does a lot with like Wes Anderson and artsy indie movies. But like
the pianist himself.
But like he wrote a movie that nobody saw except me and starred in a couple years back called Clean, where he's like an ex-con. No, it's a tiny little movie, but it's his script, and it's a total like he's an ex-con turned garbage man who ends up having to pick up his guns. It's a total like 70s Death Wish movie. And I'm just going, that's the kind of material he's generating for himself. But I will say, people shut up when they saw him in this movie because he did the work.
I think it was in the IMDb trivia. It's like him and Topher Grace both did like most of their own stunts in this movie. That's wild.
Well, but by the end, when he's stripped down and fuck if he doesn't look like an action hero, Adrian Brody.
Yeah, I here's the thing. What always gets me in a lot of action movies is this idea that like, special forces guy is this huge, gigantic wall of muscle a la Schwarzenegger or The Rock. And the reality of it is like, no, they're unassuming dudes that can like slip in and out of places. They're not going to be stopped by a door that's too narrow.
That's exactly what Nimrod Antal, who directed this movie, said was why he cast Adrian Brody. Is like, that's what these guys actually look like. Mm-hmm. The guys I see, because I watch a lot of stuff that's set in that world and stuff, the real guys do seem to be either guys like Brody or they're like chunky. Like they're strong, not defined.
You want a guy that can literally kick a door down.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like what those guys don't have are show muscles. They're either like wiry and lithe, or they're just beefy with these massive. I always think of the massive necks on those guys.
It's not that they have like big necks; it's that their shoulders don't stop.
Right. It's just they're gonna they are a wall. A guy will just run into them. So I do think and also it's that thing, and actually pretty much everybody in this movie has this, where it's like it's the kind of thing I love, where it's like this is B movie material, but everyone in this is like a real deal actor. So you take it pretty seriously because everybody here is really serious. I mean, Adrian Brody, you really believe he's not putting on, I'm a tough guy. You really are like, oh yeah, shit, I'll follow that guy. Where's he going?
I mean, look, he is doing "I'm a tough guy" voice the whole time, which is part of what endears me to his character.
Yeah, but you buy it, is what I'm saying. Like, he sells you on, you're like, yeah, I think I am going to follow that guy.
Yeah, let's just go down the list here because this movie is actually like fairly limited in terms of its cast. So we can just go down the list here and like the murderer's row of people we have here. So yeah, Adrian Brody, we've got Topher Grace, like we mentioned.
Yep.
Alice Braga, Walton Goggins, before he was gone full Goggins, I think.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Being a huge fan of Justified, as I am, the reason he's not a regular in the first season of Justified is because of this movie. He was missing for a good chunk of that first season because he was shooting this film.
We've got Oleg Taktarov,
who I will say you've seen play the Russian in every movie.
Yes, correct.
I see this
Danny
guy.
Trejo, because Robert Rodriguez was involved in.
Oh, did you read the story about how Danny Trejo ended up in this movie?
He was just on set. Because
no. It's even it's even better. In the script, they described Chuchillo, which apparently is what that character's name is. In the script, it said it was written in the screenplay, a guy who looks like Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo heard about this, called Robert Rodriguez and said, hey, I heard there's a guy in the script for Predators who looks just like Danny Trejo. And guess what? I look just like Danny Trejo.
If there's one thing we know about Danny Trejo is that he looked spot on, like spookily like.
Well,
Danny
I will say that is one of the. When I read that, I'm like, well, it's kind of stupid to write that he looks like Danny Trejo because you can pretty easily get Danny Trejo. Trust me. He's also Robert Rodriguez's cousin, which really makes it an easy phone call.
Sure. Louis Azala is in this, who you've probably seen in something else as stoic Japanese man.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, everybody, this does that thing kind of like Aliens, where everyone is pretty thinly sketched, but easily identifiable.
Yeah, and rounding things off, we've got Mahershala Ali in just a very notable, if limited, performance in this movie. Is he the first of them to die?
He sure is.
So yeah, unfortunately, the black guy does die first in this one. But
now I just want to say, you're talking about 2-time Academy Award winner.
Sure.
There are 2 Academy Award winners in the cast of this movie.
Last but not least, I forgot to mention Lawrence Fishburne. Has Lawrence Fishburne never won an Academy Award?
Sadly, Mr. Fishburne has not won an Academy Award. Don't get me started on him not winning it for Boys in the Hood. I was gonna say, burns me up to this day. He wasn't even nominated for it. It's some bullshit. He's
and then we have a lot of big guys playing predators.
Yes, some of which you might know. Kerry Jones and Derek Mears are definitely guys who do a lot of work. If you're a fan of genre stuff, like Kerry Jones also plays Black Chrysanthemum on Book of Boba Fett.
Oh
yeah. And which is also Robert Rodriguez directed a lot of that. He played Man-Thing in the Werewolf by Night movie that they did. And Derek Mears has been everything.
Derek Mears, Swamp Thing.
Derek Mears was Swamp Thing. He was Jason Voorhees. He's in Alita Battle Angel, once again, also from Rodriguez. He just was in Salem's Lot, being a creepy character. So yeah, these are your guys. These are your go-to
and
creature.
Brian
guys.
Steele, who is your third Predator in this movie, is not recognizable because usually he is coded in some kind of creature effect if he shows up in things. I would probably most know him as Samael the Hellhound from Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy movie.
Yes, yeah. And actually, I see now. I did not know this guy by name, but I have seen a lot of his work. If you're a listener over on Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, he plays a lot of the Lycans in the Underworld franchise.
Oh, yes.
But most recently,
and he, of course, played the Minotaur in Anchorman 2.
And I believe he's also the Were-Hyena in that, too. Yes, he is.
Were-Hyena.
But he was the robot on the Netflix Lost in Space show, which I was a big fan of as well. And that was a major important character in that show, of course, as the robot always is in Lost in Space. So, I mean, yeah, and this movie does do, it is like the first movie in that it is a small little ensemble of people, and that's it. It's them in a jungle of sorts. The big shift here, of course, is the idea that we're not on Earth.
Yeah. The big reveal in this movie, I don't know. Watching this movie, I was trying to keep in mind, like, okay, what if I didn't know this was a Predator movie? Like, would this film have been more effective if the reveal of we're on an alien planet and we're being hunted wasn't like revealed with the title of the film? I don't know.
It's an interesting thing, right? It's an interesting thing. We talked about this over on Meet the Monsters when we talked about the movie Abigail that was out earlier. What would be last year, probably, by the time you're listening to this. Which Brendan Jones and I are massive fans of that movie. It was really good. But there were a lot of people who, because that movie, even more so than this, starts out as a crime movie and you kind of find out about halfway through, oh shit, it's a vampire movie. But all the trailers, all the promotions said that. And a lot of people are going, oh, I wish they hadn't. But the double-edged sword of that is like, would people to know to go then?
Yeah.
It's an interesting
we
thing,
talked
right?
about something similar with Last Voyage of the Demeter, right?
Yeah.
Like, how that movie opens with, like, by the way, this has Dracula in it.
That was a weird choice, to be like, the following is based on the novel Dracula. Like, it actually goes out of its way to go, see how there's this chapter that's kind of alluded to, and here's the movie, and you're just like, okay, wow, I mean, I'm not sure we needed that much info in it.
Right.
But
this doesn't go that far, but, like,
yeah.
the first, like, 20 minutes of this film, the characters don't know what's going on.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't know that there's a clear answer to this, but it's an interesting debate, right? About like, well, we got to get people in the door, because I don't know that people would have just gone to see Adrian Brody in Mysterious Soldier movie. Like,
yeah, no, it's true. It's the double-edged sword of Hollywood marketing versus good storytelling.
Well, because especially in a world where there are lots of other movies and people, how do you got to get people in the door. It's part of the promotion. And I guess, to defeat my own point, that they're on an alien planet isn't necessarily a twist, it's the premise. And so like, if you can't explain a movie's premise at all, that is a point of bad writing. One thing no studio wants to hear is, oh, you just got to see it. That's not good to a film studio, especially if it's like this, which is like a summer tentpole movie.
Or wanted to be.
Yeah. Interesting. I was looking at this because this was obviously kind of written off as a failure. It made $127.2 million on a $40 million budget. That's not bad.
Right, but it got absolutely crushed by the third Twilight movie and Despicable Me.
Well, we'll get into the box office later, but I'm just saying, like, it's one of those things where this is a frustrating thing about modern Hollywood, right? Where it's like a movie can be successful but still deemed a failure. Is a weird world we live in now, where it's like, no. We wanted this to set the world on fire, and all it did was do well. That's not cool. I mean, this thing made more than double its budget. Movies would kill for that.
In what world is a Predator movie ever going to like be a screaming sing it to the rooftops box office specifically success?
I'm actually shocked with the most recent Alien movie that they deemed it such a success, because it probably made about in the same ballpark. They just were realistic about it this time, which is good. There should have been a sequel to this movie, not only because I would have liked it, but I think that there was enough of an audience that wanted to see it, clearly based on what the numbers were. But it was just like, oh, yeah, it wasn't one of the biggest grossing movies of the year, so fuck it, man. We want to make $1 billion. And he's like, yeah, it's a weird decision.
So the next outing we would get was the Predator, which was such a resounding
Oh
success.
boy, we'll get to it. That one I also saw in the theater.
Again, haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
really
I know.
excited to.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think we're gonna have a very interesting conversation about that movie. But this movie,
because I think this movie Predators actually starts to lay the groundwork for some of the what you talk about, like Gleep Glop lore bullshit that maybe the Predator gets kind of bogged down in.
Yes, one of the big things Rodriguez talked a lot about in this was they wanted to strip away everything from AVP in this.
Which, I mean, by the innate concept of just taking random killers and putting them on an alien world, like, that's immediately removing yourself from 95% of everything else in the franchise.
Right. But he was, I think he has some quote about, like, we saw those and went, okay, we don't do that. Got it.
Well, I mean, look, your first step of making it an R-rated film with a small cast, gold. Perfect. Great.
No, there definitely does feel like a noticeable turn away from some of the instincts to turn this into the blockbuster franchise it was never meant to be, right? Like, it's like you can't turn this into something it's not. What
stands out to me, the contrast that this movie makes to the sequence in the first AVP movie where you have the Predators standing on top of a pyramid, blasting away at a wave of xenomorphs coming at them. Like, that is grand Hollywood spectacle that this franchise was never supposed to have.
Right.
To me, anyway.
No, the first movie was such... I mean, one of the things that, that I think people love about the first movie is it's real down and dirty, gritty, man versus creature movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the first movie is basically structurally a slasher film.
Yeah, and even the second movie kind of has those same rhythms to an extent.
There's
obviously,
this is B material, not in a derogatory way, but just in there's a nastiness to it. So that's the idea that they think this franchise is gonna be like a huge summer blockbuster thing. Is like, well, the first one kind of turned into that, but it wasn't designed as that.
Also, what constituted a blockbuster in that era? It was just so radically different.
Well, the thing back then too, I mean, one of the big shifts, right? And I think it goes to the fact that Adrian Brody is the star of this movie, but look at the poster, it's the Predator. At that time, the selling point was Schwarzenegger. And if you put Schwarzenegger, you were already most of the way to a box office smash back then.
Sure. Yeah. But we immediately changed gears in Predator 2, right?
Yeah.
Like, has there been a Predator movie since then that has the actor's face on it until we get to Prey? No.
And even Prey is not sold on that. I mean, her face isn't on her whole body isn't. The Prey poster is very cool, but it's a totally different thing. But yeah. This unlike Alien, which, as we've talked about, really struggled to get out from being the Sigourney Weaver franchise, Predator very clearly, from Predator 2 on, was like, the Predator is the star. There is no movie star in this franchise.
Yeah, and the fact that was a maybe not conscious effort by whoever is guiding this franchise, but it was definitely the result of, well, we couldn't get Schwarzenegger back, I think is pretty telling, and it frees the Predator franchise in a way that Alien has always had trouble shaking the whole Sigourney of it all.
Well, because we've talked about, even in the movies that don't have Sigourney, they're turning somebody into the Ripley of the movie has kind of been, I think, a storytelling problem over there at that franchise. And even though, Adrian Brody, it would have been interesting to see, had this been a big success and they made more with Adrian Brody, if he would have turned into more of the hero of this franchise.
Maybe. I don't know. It's tough to say because, really, when it comes down to it, the storytelling mechanic of the Predator franchise, when it's done right, is always man versus nature, man versus effectively other man. Those are the two driving, compelling. Because, obviously, Predator not human, but is still person shaped and is hunting other
and this
humans.
movie, says this, right? it's predators. It works both ways. This is the hunters versus the hunter, killer versus killer, warrior versus warrior in this movie, which is so much of the cool.
Movie has a freaking Hemingway quote about that.
Yeah.
It's just like, yep, that's where this movie should live. Somewhere between Grindhouse and Hemingway. That's where the Predator, like...
No, I think one of the things I really like about this movie is how earnest it is, right? It's very serious. I was going to say, I love also that this movie just starts. We're in free fall with Adrien Brody, and we're going.
I want to read the plot description of this film that IMDb lists.
Yeah.
Because I think it is, A, tells you nothing about the movie, and B, is like very indicative of like, yeah, I guess that happens. So the one sentence plot description on IMDb reads, a group of elite warriors parachute into an unfamiliar jungle and are hunted by members of a merciless alien race.
Yeah.
I think that sort of belays the opening of this film a little bit.
I would say,
and it says they parachute in.
I would. Can I? Here's my edit on that. Are parachuted in. Someone
I
drops
think even
them.
the term parachuting in is maybe I guess
They're
they eventually
in?
get parachutes. Yeah.
Well, one guy's doesn't, which I do love that one guy just hits the ground.
Yeah, and like there's so many questions just about that sequence to begin with, and like it raises so many questions that I don't think need to be answered.
That's what I was gonna say. That's one of the things I love about the movies. We don't get like a prologue where Adrien Brody is in a desert combat or something and gets pulled up into a beam of light. No. Who cares, man? Let's just start with them getting dropped in, and the fact that we start right on his face, obviously. Not only is he a movie star, but you are like, okay, this is our guy. This is Royce.
Mm-hmm. Which we don't get basically anyone's character name throughout the movie. Royce's name we don't get until the almost last scene of the film.
Returning to the structure of the first movie, though, everyone is just one name except for Lawrence Fishburne. But everybody, which is very much the Dutch, Dylan, the guys of the first movie. And immediately
here we have Royce, Isabel, Edwin, Stans, Nikolai, Chichilo, Mombasa, and Hanzo, half of whom's names we literally never hear in the film.
I swear, at the very least, Chichilo and Mombasa never stated. I would put money.
Hanzo has ever said. I don't think Stans has ever said.
I think Stans
I don't think Topher Grace. I don't know if Topher Grace ever says his name.
I don't know. The only ones I would put money on Trejo and Ali getting no mention of their names. Maybe the other ones sneak in there, but I'm certain those two were never stated. I feel like maybe I heard Hanzo. I feel like I definitely heard Stans. I don't think I ever heard Edwin.
They just refer to him as Doc the whole movie. He says he was a doctor.
By the way,
Alexei, the Russian guy, says his name in his intro scene, but that's it.
Yeah. By the way, literally this is the case, but also in general, Topher Grace kind of the secret weapon of this movie.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He's so good in this movie. He is such smart casting. I feel like the casting of him in this is what Raimi was going for with him as Venom. Of like, when we see Topher Grace, there's an immediate sort of like, oh yeah, because he was the audience surrogate, lovable everyman of that 70s show.
Sure.
And so you're like, you know what? I could be this guy. And then when you get the rug pulled out from under you.
In this movie, it's weaponized and purposeful. Mm-hmm. In Spider-Man 3, it's a studio note. That's the problem.
Well, I still like the idea, not the execution, but I still do like the idea of Topher Grace, who feels like could have been number 2 or 3 on that list of prospective Spider-Mans in the first movie, being the mirror image as opposed to the big hulking guy. I think is a good take on Eddie Brock. I think obviously what happened in that movie with that character and Raimi not wanting him there at all is a mistake. But I don't blame Grace.
That's the play in Ultimate Spider-Man, right? Yeah. Is Eddie Brock in Ultimate Spider-Man is just like, what if like Peter's life, but like slightly more messed up, so he has this much darker.
And I feel really bad because I know Topher Grace to be a huge fucking nerd who like fought tooth and nail and was psyched out of his mind to be in that. And so I don't blame him. He does as good a job with that
Right.
material as
Yeah.
he can. And I'm sure also was psyched. I mean, this is a guy who, in his free time is re-editing movies. That's like his passion.
There's like a legendary Topher Grace cut of the Star Wars prequels.
He turned it
that
all into
apparently,
one
like-
movie.
Yeah.
And apparently it's people who've seen it say it's amazing.
Who knows? Yeah.
He also recently did he recut Close Encounters of the Third Kind and like tried to bring a more modern pacing to it. As he says, this is just for fun.
Yeah, and again, huge fucking nerd.
Huge fucking nerd. I've always loved Topher Grace.
Anyone who spends free time recutting Spielberg and Lucas movies is a huge nerd.
Yeah, and that's great. I've always been a big fan of his. I just saw him in he's in Heretic, the Hugh Grant horror movie that's out.
Oh, is he?
He's in that, yeah. And I'm very excited for a movie he has coming out called Flight Risk with him and Mark Wahlberg that looks very sort of Hitchcockian thriller on a plane.
Is it a two-hander with him and Wahlberg?
No, there's also a Michelle Docker in there. It's a three-hander, but it's just the three of them on a plane the whole movie.
I want to see him acting against Wahlberg.
I think that's an interesting pairing of energies. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll have any chemistry, but I'm morbidly curious.
Yeah, I want to say directed by Mel Gibson, which really adds a like. Interesting. But anyway, I think he's so good in this movie because you really do go like, well, save Topher Grace. You guys, obviously he's here by mistake.
Until he's not. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy the twist that he is like, they don't say it out loud, but he's like a serial killer, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's another thing I think this movie does really well is like they don't spell out what everyone's deal is. Yeah. I mean, they kind of do because
I believe
Adrian Brody gives the rundown of everyone's just like, well, you're Mossad and you're
Goggins is talking about he was going to the gas chamber, like,
sure.
And I think also talks about he's going to go a raping later. So I think we can. We know he's a bad dude, so like I forgive that. He was on death row, and maybe there's a very good reason for that. Once again, great Topher Grace note when Goggins is talking about that, and he's like, "You know what I'm talking about," and Topher Grace being like, "Oh yeah, Friday be rape night."
And then he just stands up, walks over to stand next to Alexei, and the Russian guy is just like, "You should not be near him." And Topher's just like, correct.
The point about he's the only one who doesn't have a gun. I need a fucking gun, man. I
love the fact that they literally never give him a gun.
No. He is Gogginsing throughout this movie. There's no question.
He totally is.
It's not an established thing as of yet. But this is, because I always bring up that he's in one scene of G.I. Joe Retaliation and he steals the movie. It's about this same time. He shows up and he's do you have any memory of this? I don't know. It's 3 years after.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's after this because G.I. Joe Retaliation was like
2013.
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah. Do you have any memory of him being in this, or have you even seen G.I. Joe Retaliation?
I saw G.I. Joe Retaliation once in theater, maybe with you.
Oh, I almost certainly. If somebody was like, "We're going to G.I. Joe Retaliation tonight," it was me. I really like. I'm a big. Particularly. I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan, and I thought Retaliation is the best live action. I still think it's imperfect. I still haven't gotten the G.I. Joe movie I want, but it's the closest to the spirit of G.I. Joe. But anyway, he's the warden of the prison Cobra Commander's in. And it does feel like they were just like, I don't know, fucking Goggins improvise a monologue. He's just like, ain't nobody ever escaped from this here prison in all my life. Because what I love is Goggins is a guy from the South, but in real life, he's not nearly as Southern as almost every performance you've seen him give. He's got like a little bit of a twang, but in every movie, and of course, particularly the work he's done with Jody Hill and David Gordon Green and Danny McBride on all those shows. He's just astounding. And we talked about Fallout over on our other show where, just come on. They won't, but Emmy. If that doesn't get a fucking Emmy, it's one of the best performances I've seen on television.
It's gonna get some kind of makeup award, and that's it, and we're all gonna scream about it.
Yeah, but I mean, that performance is truly one of the best performances I've seen on TV in years. And
yeah,
this is a perfect example of what he did before he sort of became a guy that they were building projects around, and why I became such a fan of his. Because I would have known him coming to this from Justified, maybe had just started, but The Shield was where I really became a massive fan.
Yeah.
But he was a guy who, for a long time, particularly in movies, would come in for a couple scenes and dominate. He knew how to just eat up the scenery of a few scenes in a movie because, he's just one of the people in this, but he is one of the things he makes you remember him in this movie.
Well, and that's like how he's deployed in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yep.
It's just like, what the hell is he doing here? Oh, just being fun, I guess.
His performance in Ant-Man and the Wasp should be talked about more because it is so weird. He makes this guy just makes choices, and I love actors like that.
Yeah, I want him and Justin Hammer to have a villain.
There you go. They're very similar in that way, where it's like these guys aren't cosmic level threats to the world. They're just kind of shitty bad guys. They're just kind of douchebags.
We love a shitty douchebag, and this movie, fun, Predators, is kind of full of them.
Oh, I mean, because that's the thing. Is like everybody here is a bad guy from some perspective, right? Because we get that with
there are no like heroes here.
No, because like Royce is, they talk about like, because I like early on when they're like, you must be some kind of military. It's like, sort of, like.
Well, the closest we get is like he tacitly admits that he's some kind of mercenary, and that's pretty much it.
He seems like a guy who was like former spec ops, maybe got run out or something, and now is a soldier for hire. I mean, which is kind of what the guys in the first movie are.
Yeah, and the closest thing we get to kind of figuring out what they are is actually in this movie when
Isabel has
Alice Braga has like a recap of like, by the way, this happened in Predator 1.
I love that whole thing of tying it back to that, where it's just like, well, I kind of know what that thing is because there was this report in South America, and referencing the idea that like, well, Arnold gave a after action report, and everybody is kind of like, what? These monsters. Very much tying it back to the idea that Alien versus Predators, those never happened.
Didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
We definitely get confirmation about two things. Like, one, what was the deal with the squad that Arnold had put together? And two, what country that movie took place in? Because she says Guatemala.
Oh yeah. It's always been chucked to Valverde, which is a fake country that Steven D'Souza uses in a lot of his scripts. It's where Commando takes place in Valverde, and so a lot of people are like, right. Predator was probably also in Valverde, and I think it might be in. I think Street Fighter which D'Souza directed, I think also has Guile mentioned Valverde. It's a thing. If you're a fan of like 80s, 90s action movies, you've heard of Valverde. It's definitely in Die Hard 2. They're bringing back the dictator from Valverde is coming into the airport, having been arrested. Anyway, there'll be don't worry, folks. There'll be a Die Hard season, and also Street Fighter is already on the calendar for another season, so don't worry. Everybody.
Yes.
Oh yeah, got to.
And for me, it was a Tuesday.
I mean, that movie is all about the Raul Julia performance, right? I mean, it's
100%.
That's
everyone else was on cocaine.
Oh, I mean, Van Damme is straight up said, "I have no memory of making that movie."
Look, you got a cocaine-fueled Van Damme, a Mulan who isn't Mulan yet, and a Raul Julia who is like literally fighting cancer to act the shit out of that movie.
He died immediately after that movie was so I mean it was a crazy film, but we'll save all that for when we get there. But yeah, well, I believe it's actually I think it's Alice Braga actually is the
Alice.
I believe that's what I've heard said.
Look, that's totally fair. Like that's just my dumb American mouth reading the word. Alice on the internet. So Alice, that's totally fair.
Yeah. She's somebody whose career, if you look at, has been in so many like genre things, and I feel like she's a face everybody knows, but kind of isn't like mentioned as a big actress, but like objectively is. I always go back to I Am Legend is maybe the first place I saw her,
Mm-hmm.
which was a couple years before this.
She just had a great role in the Suicide Squad.
Yep. She was in New Mutants as well. She was in.
That's a movie that very few people saw, but yes,
but they should. It's good. I really liked New Mutants a lot.
I think it is good for what it is. I think it's not a great New Mutants movie, but that's just
I think it's a very good New Mutants movie, but we're not going to have this conversation. She also came back to do the voice of this character in Predator Hunting Grounds.
That was the video game, yeah.
Yeah. Which also brought back Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, Schwarzenegger, like that game had like a weirdly big push and then kind of amounted to nothing. Because
it
was one of those.
I'm looking at this. I kind of remember it coming
asymmetric multiplayer shooters.
Yeah.
One player played as the Predator, 4 other players played as the Commandos.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
and
that's probably why I didn't
you had
play
a bunch of unlockable characters as well, including Arnold and Isabella from this movie, and Marshawn Lynch from I believe The Predator.
Oh no, that's just Marshawn Lynch, the football player. He's not in any of the Predator.
I don't know. His character had a name, so I'm assuming
I know. I know. But his character's
he played
name,
Dante Beast Mode Jefferson in that
Beast Mode was his football playing nickname, so he's kind of just playing himself in it.
Okay, well, good for him. I guess.
I do really enjoy Marshawn Lynch. I will say, he's very funny to me, and he's starting to act now, which I enjoy, because he was always very funny to me when he played football.
Egg on my face for not knowing about a sports guy, I guess.
Boy, here's the thing. I look cool because you mentioned like one of the very few people I know in sports. She was also in, and I'm going to keep talking about the movie Hypnotic, because I really liked Hypnotic. I don't think anybody else saw it. That was Robert Rodriguez's last movie with Ben Affleck.
No, I did not see it.
No one saw it. It was one of those things where the studio that made it, they finished the movie and then the studio went under, having finished the movie but not releasing it. So like it barely came out. It's one of those things where people are like, wait, there's a Robert Rodriguez movie starring Ben Affleck that came out in 2020. How did I miss this? It's like, because no one saw it except me.
Because it went straight to VOD with zero fanfare.
Yeah, I think it might have opened in like 100 theaters or something like that. It played South by Southwest, but yeah, it basically turned into an indie film.
For tax purposes, it was released in theaters, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a thing like that. Anyway, I think it's pretty good. It's a very weird, trippy sci-fi movie. But I enjoyed it. But anyway, she was in that too. Also with, and she's on Dark Matter. Have you watched Dark Matter, Gorgoni, on Apple TV?
I have not. It
really good.
Looks like my kind of show, but there's just only so much time.
Guy kidnapped by his double from an alternate reality because that guy feels that this version of him has a better life, so he just steals his life.
Fun concept.
Great. It's a good show. Really good sci-fi show. Anyway, she's great in that, and she really has to anchor a lot of the humanity of this movie, I feel like.
Yeah, she's the only character here who is basically saying, like, what if we all weren't assholes? Could we just stop for a second?
I do, because, of course, the movie starts with everybody just shooting at each other, basically.
Yeah, because they're just like killers dropped into an unknown situation. Your first instinct is other people with guns, well, they're clearly here to kill me.
And it falls to Royce and Isabel to basically become mom and dad of this group, right? Like, because I do love the moment where Nikolai is just blasting away with his minigun, and then when he's reloading, Royce sneaks up on him, and I just love the way Adrian Brody goes, "Could you please stop doing that?" By the way, Adrian Brody, the whole movie, is carrying an auto shotgun, which is one of my favorite completely ridiculous action movie weapons.
A drum-barreled automatic shotgun is one of the silliest video game ass guns that exists in action films.
It's exactly what I want the main character of a Predator movie to be carrying.
I was half expecting it to also be a grenade launcher.
Why not? I mean, sure, yeah. Attach that to it too, and put a bayonet on it while you're at it as well. Why not?
Yeah. No, this movie does the classic action thing of like, okay, all these different people have all these different kind of like killer skills, and all of them have different weapons.
Isabel
so
has a
even though
sniper
you don't
rifle.
get anyone's name or background, you get basically a vibe on everyone.
I mean,
and even Topher Grace's character, before you know he's a serial killer, he busts out that like little scalpel pretty early on in the movie.
Because he's Doc. You're writing him off as a doctor, right? By default, the way he presents himself, he's the nerd. There's the thing where he knows what the plants are.
Right. But like, casual doctor, I carry scalpels with me everywhere I go.
But it's great. Well, but in a Predator movie, I actually don't find that strange.
Sure.
But like,
those are just my pocket scalpels.
Yeah. Nikolai's got the insane minigun that it's always insane to think that anyone would just be carrying that around. Although it's the same, Jesse Ventura also carries that in the original Predator. Trejo's dual wielding MP5s, which is just not an effective way to shoot weapons, as we know. Dual wielding anything really is not what anyone who knows.
Mahershala Ali's got an AK. Walton Goggins has a Shiv.
Yeah, and Hanzo's got the cool chrome-plated 9mm that he keeps in his shoulder holster. Also, love the little detail of him being the like Yakuza guy, and him having the fancy suit, and when he steps in mud and the super nice shoes, and he has to ditch them. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff similar to, I think, what we liked about Aliens, and honestly, and the first Predator in this movie, where I'm not expecting a ton of character development, but there's just enough that you're like, okay, that's this guy, you're this person. There's just enough flavor on each of them for you to have some investment in them.
Right. And they all have like a different silhouette and a different like stance and attitude.
Yeah.
So you don't run into the Alien 3 problem of like, well, there's a bunch of grubby bald guys running around, and boy, I just can't tell the difference between any of them.
Yeah. Once again, I'm not going into this expecting that I'm going to like, really fall in love with these characters and really come, but you're just like, oh no, yeah, there's this guy and that guy. It's the classic like team movie, Men on a Mission, Dirty Dozen kind of movie. Everybody's got their thing.
I mean, that's exactly what the Expendables franchise is built on.
Oh, hell
but you add the cachet of the like recognizable actors, right? Which this movie sort of has in retrospect, which is weird.
Yeah, because people like Goggins and Ali have become stars.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking Blade's in this movie, man. Who would have thought?
Well,
the man who would be Blade is in
the
this
man
movie.
who would be Blade. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Feige just said the other day, he's coming. Don't get off my ass.
I know.
And I believe it. But
for now, the Blade comment in Deadpool and Wolverine stands of there's only been one Blade.
Only ever going to be one Blade.
And we do not count Sticky Fingers.
No. Or the one line that he says off screen at the end of Eternals. It was like, remember when he spoke? It's like he said like a sentence, and everybody was like, "Wait, who was that?" And they're like, "It was Blade." Oh, cool. Let's talk about the other member of the troupe in this movie, who talk about he's in this movie for like 15 minutes and just takes over this movie for 15 minutes. Lawrence Fishburne, very much one of my favorite actors, always has been. And it is just like, the movie basically is just like, ladies and gentlemen, Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, when he takes the Predator helmet off, it's just like, oh, everyone, Morpheus is here.
And I had heard, I still can't find it, but I remember when this came out, that there was discussion about this being Danny Glover at one point.
Yeah, it's such a different take. Like if it was Danny Glover, I can't see it being the same. Like,
I don't know that it would have been the script.
Performance.
And you know about where the Dutch cameo was supposed to be in this, right?
That was supposed to be the dead soldier, like that they find.
No, it was supposed to be at the end of the movie, having the two characters having survived. A Predator ship lands. A bunch of Predators come out. One takes off its helmet, and it's Dutch going, "Congratulations, you've survived the hunt." He's now one of them.
That would feel real silly.
Well, I'll just say stay tuned for The Predator. But
boy. Okay.
but yeah, no, Fishburne, he worked 2 days on this movie according to IMDb. And
good for him.
Oh, get that money, Larry.
And that was just in Texas. Like,
yeah.
There's a quote I was reading from, I think it was Mahershala Ali, where it's like, yeah, filming this movie was great. We spent the first chunk in Hawaii, and then we just hung out with you guys in Texas.
I mean, it sounds like the exact opposite of what we talked about, the misery of shooting the original Predator movie, right? Where they were really like down in the jungles and just, whereas here it's like, oh, we just had a great time, man. We ate barbecue and hung out at Rodriguez's house. I'm like, yeah, man, this sounds great. Yeah, I just want to see 2010. What was he in something else this year?
Who?
No.
Fishburne?
Yeah, no. I think he might have still been doing CSI at this point.
He was definitely in the video game that was released this year, CSI: Fatal Conspiracy.
Yeah, 2008 to 2011, he was the head of CSI. So
I always forget he was like the guy on CSI for a while.
Yeah, it was William Peterson, then it was him, then it was Ted Danson. People really forget that Ted Danson, the last chunk.
I remember Ted Danson.
Yeah, man, that was good stuff. But yeah, you know what's interesting? Also in that CSI video game, Mahershala Ali.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, who was not on the show? He just was in the video game.
Good for him, getting work.
Yeah, he also did the voice in the motion comic prequel that came out about this.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Moment of extraction. See, this is the opening bit of the movie you don't want there, where everyone's getting grabbed, right?
Yep. I think it's very telling, though, that Adrian Brody is one of the cast members, is I think the only cast member who did not participate in that. He held. I heard he just showed them his Academy Award and walked out. I don't have to do that shit.
Like that, they got him on a Zoom call and he just broke the screen with his Academy Award.
It's the Austin Powers thing with Steven Spielberg going, "Well, my friend here thinks it's going just fine." Yeah. I never
Lawrence
watched
Fishburne dominates this film for the 15 minutes he's in it by being just the guy you find in the jungle who survived for too long.
And
right?
at first,
he's the guy at the end of Heart of Darkness.
Because at first you're like, oh, cool. And then you're like, oh, this guy's creepy. It reminds me very much of Tim Robbins is used in a similar way in War of the Worlds, which I love that whole sequence with him where it's like, oh, he saved us and he's the guy with the bunker. And then you start to be like, oh, shit, we're actually less safe here.
Yeah. At the weird twitchy performance he gives here has like Bowery King vibes turned up to 12.
Yeah. Bowery King, if it was legit like the Bowery King is kind of crazy and plays it up as an effect. This is that guy if he's legit nuts, like talking to people who aren't there and just
trying to murder everyone.
Yeah, that moment where they're like, oh fuck, like he wants our stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he serves an important plot purpose in that, like, he lets them know sort of some plotty plot stuff. And he also reveals to them that, like, no, you can't really survive this place. You can, like, physically be alive, but it still, like, removes the sense of self that you are trying to preserve.
There's no way to, like, get out of this, really. There's no really way to win this hunt, even if they don't kill you. Because what does he say? How long have you been here? I've been here for 7 seasons.
He says
something.
He says 7, and then he turns and talks to the person who's not there and says 10. Oh boy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think that, but you're like, we don't even know what the hell a season is. Who knows how long this guy's been here?
Yeah, he says he spent the first 3 seasons just walking in a single direction, trying to escape, and there is no end to the preserve.
Right. Because that's the big thing in the beginning of the movie before they even get to Fishburne, right? This whole idea about like, well, we just got to find our way out. And then, of course, when they come out to that clearing and they see all the planets surrounding them, and it's just like, oh, we're not on Earth.
Yeah, there's no out.
Yeah.
Out is we're on an alien world.
Yeah. No, yeah, we're so yeah, and that's the thing is like they would have to choose to let you leave, and that ain't gonna happen.
Right. I really enjoy just the straight up concept of this film of like, yeah, predators have a game preserve that they
I
just
love that
drop
idea.
deadly crap into, and it's humans and animals and anything you can think of. Obviously this movie has a pretty tight budget, so you can't go berserk with this idea like you might in a like a better funded film where it's just like, no, this is Skull Island, everything is here is trying to kill you.
Well, that's what I love when Topher Grace recognizes the plan. It's like, ooh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like the idea that they've even populated this area with the deadliest plants. You know, like they're just collecting shit from all over the place. And there's probably stuff here, vegetation or wildlife like we see with the predator dog, where it's like stuff we don't even recognize that is super deadly.
I love the weird like bug man that is chasing Topher Grace that they kill at some point.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh no, there's even like humanoid stuff here.
Yeah.
But it's still alien and dangerous.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so, and of course, then when we get to the big thing, which is the predator that's been crucified, basically, right? I mean, it's been strung up and left for, you know, and it's like, we don't quite know. I love that moment when it's like, when Adrian Brody's like, because the whole thing is we got to get to the ship and fly out of here. And like, you don't know how to fly. It's like, well, that guy probably does. And what's the line he has about like, I don't think he's our enemy. And Braga says, it doesn't make him our friend.
Yeah. There's this whole tenuous relationship across this franchise, starting with AVP and going into this film of just like, okay, under certain circumstances, humans and predators can work together.
Right.
And sometimes that's when xenomorphs are involved, and sometimes that's when even bigger predators are involved.
Yeah. Once again, keep this in mind because one Shane Black will take this and run with it like crazy.
Okay, because this film introduces the idea of the quote-unquote super predator. It never like calls them that in the film, but that's what they're called on Xenopedia.
Right. What did they call it?
Which is, of course, the Alien and Predator Wikipedia page.
Here, the three predators here are called Tracker Predator, Berserker Predator, and Classic Predator. Are the credited ones in the
right,
movie.
And that's I think because one of the Predator actors plays two of them, I believe. Because Brian Steele plays both Berserker and
Falconer Predator. Yeah, sorry, there's another one too. Yeah, Falconer.
Because Falconer's the guy with the little robot bird that swoops around and like,
which is very cool. I mean, I do like any additions, as we've talked about, all the additions to their weapons or hunting abilities or things like that. That obviously is a big thing. I feel like each filmmaker wants to put their stamp on, right? When they come in here, it's like, I gave them this.
Right. And this one goes a little wild in terms of the mask design. We got Tracker that has like the tusks coming out of his mask. We have Falconer that has like the just very like angular polyhedral mask, and Berserker who has, and I have confirmed this via like reading up on it, a xenomorph mandible built into the bottom.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Well, there's all kinds of different factions maybe within the Predator thing that we'll get into. And
that's what this movie sort of sets up. And I guess in The Predator, they go a little hog wild with it.
Yeah.
Is that there's this kind of different clans or caste systems within the Predator Society. And at least in this movie, we have these three big predators that are quote unquote super predators, according to Xenopedia.
They're your big
and
boys.
Then there's what's called the jungle hunters, which are your more traditional fishnet wearing, killing people associated with Arnold Schwarzenegger side of predators.
That's your classic predator.
Yeah, you've got your Predator Classic, and then you've got your Crystal Predator, and you got your Predator. Predator, and your
They were
Predator
very
Light.
happy to say during the promotion of this movie that this is the first movie since the first movie to bring back the classic Predator.
And it does.
Yeah,
he's chained to a rock for most of it, but yeah.
But that becomes a thing where it's like, well, you know, that guy may not be on our side per se, but he probably hates all the other predators, is basically Adrian Brody's what he's counting on.
Yeah, and eventually when like one of their masks gets taken off, we see like there are actual physical differences to the super predators. Their heads shaped are slightly different. Their mandibles are a little bit more dexterous.
I guess it's a cool design. When the mask comes off, it is really cool when that thing roars at you.
I was gonna ask you like where you fall in the design of like predator heads.
I mean, I like that there's a. I mean, obviously, I'm always most drawn to the classic because it's the But I do
Sure.
really like this one, and I do think in terms of it being a super predator, as you were, it feels that way. It feels bigger. It feels scarier. It feels more evolved in a way, right? To be the warrior class.
Yeah. I don't know. I go back and forth on like it looks a little bit more I don't know, animalistic, I guess. It's
Oh
got
yeah,
this like sloped kind of like muzzle feature to
yeah.
it that the original Predator doesn't have. Um that like I don't know, does feel a little bit more like feral, I guess is the word I would use.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And like whether or not that needs to be the be all end all of Predator, I guess I'll get my answers from Shane Black in a few years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's going to be a lot of Predator designs come that movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there when we get there, I guess. For now, we've just got the two, and yeah, these super predators are here to kick ass, take names, and kill everyone, and that includes the original
Well,
Jungle Hunter Predator.
and this is a real good, like, upping the stakes of in a sequel, right? The idea that here's something we saw the threat of the classic Predator in the first movie, and now here's a thing that intimidates that and can put that in its place. You're like, oh shit, we saw this thing run through our Spec Ops guys in the first movie, but this thing is a runt to the real deal super predators. You're like, fuck, man. Well, how the hell is Adrian Brody gonna deal with this?
And the answer is lots of fire and an axe.
It's pretty rad when he's just
It's
beating
kind
this
of
thing
awesome.
to death at the end, and he's covered in the neon blood and stuff like that.
Yeah, it rules.
Yeah, it's this movie kicks ass. Like if you enjoy Predator as an action franchise, this will get you there. This will get you there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the body count of something like AVP Requiem.
No.
But that's okay because we do have a predator literally grabbing Walton Goggins's tailbone and ripping his spine and skull out of the like meat of him.
I mean, yeah. The kills are pretty, because we talked about Mahershala Ali's the first one to go down. He gets impaled and then just lifted up into the air. I mean, I got to say, if you're going to go out in a Predator movie, that's a pretty good way to go.
I feel like you got to have at least one of those in every Predator movie where something gets impaled by the invisible predator, right? Mm-hmm. In Prey, it's the bear, which is amazing.
The bear is really cool.
Nick, we'll get there when we get there. But in this movie, yeah, it's Mahershala Ali and the spear.
Nikolai gets the cool sacrifice move where the predator's killing him, but he hits a grenade and blows himself and the thing up.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Walton Goggins goes out by, like I said, getting his spine ripped out. But that's after he like leaps on the thing and buys Adrian Brody and co some time to escape.
Do you love that? Here's what a piece of shit Topher Grace is in this movie. It's like, because there's a point where they think at the end of the movie that Adrian Brody has abandoned him and Alicia Braga, and he's like, well, I guess we're doomed. Time for me to get one more murder in, though.
Yeah, there's a switch gets flipped in Topher Grace's character at a certain point in the third act here, where it feels like, I don't know. Again, the movie doesn't take time to explain any of this, but it feels like, and his last line kind of speaks to this, if he is also a killer in this place of killers, he is somehow like has a right to exist and continue existing.
Yeah.
When he has that line to the predator, he's like, but I'm one of you.
Yeah. He expects their respect on some level.
Yeah, exactly. And it's this very egotistical serial killer thing, right? Of just like, no, I'm a higher breed of killer.
Yeah.
And that's why I deserve to continue existing. When nothing we've seen up to this point indicates that's true. But
that's the thing. I just watched Cross on Amazon, which is based on one of my favorite book series. spoilers for the end of Cross. I'm not sure you are interested, Gergani. So
he catches the killer.
No, but the thing at the end, the thing that's cool at the end of it. Once again, spoilers. If you want to watch Cross, go watch it. I mean, I'm a big fan of the books as well. But he does catch the killer. But the thing is, they catch him for one murder, and he wants to confess to 12 more, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't really have any evidence of that." He's like, "No, you have to let me confess. I'll go into the record books." He's like, "No, we're good." And it's just that his victory over him is he denies him the legend of himself. He's just like, "No, man, I think somebody else might have done those. We actually have some evidence. Maybe it was this other guy, and we'll have to keep." And he's like, "No, you will let me confess to that." Sorry. Yeah, just this idea that like part of it is I need to be known as this. But the Predator, of course, would not respect that this guy kills in a cowardly fashion.
And that's why the grabbing of him like raises an eyebrow for me, because like obviously they're just trying to scoop up dangerous people. So somehow the predators are aware of these people's body counts. Like how are they aware of these?
This is why it's best that the movie doesn't show any of that. But yeah,
I know.
Just the idea that they're like scoping through the internet, going, such and such killer takes another victim. Yeah.
So they solved a series of like brutal murders across decades. Topher Grace was committed.
Goggins was in jail. Topher Grace was an active serial killer. Yeah, they were ahead of the FBI on catching this guy.
Yeah,
and going like, "Wow, he's put up quite a few body count."
We saw in this movie, we saw Berserker and Falconer and Tracker. What we didn't see is Sherlock Predator just going, I think I've solved it.
Yeah, there's a Predator doing a true crime podcast. The Highway Killer.
Humans. We know them. We hunt them.
Yeah.
But what if they hunt each other? Consider with me now.
Keith Morrison Predator. I love it. But it's a great moment, and of course then Adrian Brody does show back up and stabs him through the mouth, which is pretty cool.
I'm not good, but I'm fast. Oh, that's a good line.
Yeah, Adrian Brody rules in this. It does make you go like, I'm on board for more action. Adrian Brody rules. I mean, get those Oscars, man. That's great. But kick some ass while you're at it too. I like it. Like I said, if you like this vibe of Adrian Brody, I would say seek out the movie Clean, because it has a lot of. It's a more serious movie than this, but it still has a lot of him kicking a ton of ass in it.
Well, you talked about how earnest this movie is, despite some of the gratuity of its violence and the just like zaniness of its premise.
It's interesting though.
The thing this movie does well is that it takes itself seriously. We're not dealing in the land of one-liners all the time. We're not dealing in the land of
one-liners, and while the violence is graphic, it doesn't hit the gratuitousness in comparison to like something like Requiem. I mean, it's there.
Or Predator 2, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't feel like it's like they treat everything with a severity, but it's not like, hey, yeah, and let's keep going. Let's really, like, you don't get the sense that they're really like, oh, I want to make sure this is the most fucked up kill we can get. No, it's just it's all effectively done, treated with. Yeah, even the gore is more serious in nature, even if it is. I mean, the movie is rated R for strong creature violence and gore.
It does have all of those things. When they're all opening fire on the like Predator Hellhound and it just explodes into like chunks and red mist, I was just like, the CG is a little dodgy, but also part of me was just going, oh, that's awesome.
It is very cool. I do like when Adrian Brody's like, hey, everybody, conserve your ammo, and then But one of the things and that's very true to the first movie, is it kind of doesn't matter, because it's not like you're just going to shoot one of these predators.
No. The one time you actually like see a predator shot, it just like shrugs it off and goes and kills whoever's shooting at him.
Well, because that wouldn't be cool if you could just be like, bang, got one. That's not threatening. Yeah. The difference with the xenomorphs, as we found starting in the Aliens movies, is just their overwhelming number. Yeah, you can shoot them to pieces. Now, don't get their blood on you, which is also a cool thing. But the idea is, that thing you can mow down, but there's 20 more behind it.
Right. Look, there's a reason you don't see xenomorphs running around in this nature preserve. They just kill everything.
Well, that's the thing.
And like where's the fun in that?
Yeah, no. I mean, exactly. And I like the idea that like in this, it's all obviously people from Earth, and it's almost just like, hey, this hunt. What do we think? All Earthlings this time? Is that how we're doing it? Yeah.
But it's not like the Earthlings are who we stick with. But like we see the Bugman, we
I guess
see
that is
like
true. That is
all
true.
the different cages out there that
Yeah.
have fallen from the trees.
I guess that is true. Yeah. We mainly just stick with them. Yeah. And obviously,
Yeah,
maybe
we don't want a side cut to like the 7 hardscrabble Bugmen who've banded together to try to survive this situation.
I kind of want to see that movie though. I'm not gonna lie. That's a movie that definitely doesn't make money. Everyone's speaking in clicking noises and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, okay, yeah. Weird art film that came out.
All of the Bugmen voiced by D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah, man, get that guy some more work. Not that he doesn't have a ton. I do love Hanzo's samurai standoff.
Was that a little too on the nose? I don't know. I go back and forth on it.
Yeah. If it wasn't there, I would have been disappointed. Sure, it's on the nose, but it is cool.
The moment he finds the katana in Lawrence Fishburne's Little Cash, you're just like,
yeah,
okay, so this ends with 2 bladed folks running at each other and they both fall, right? Like that's how this ends.
And they do the classic samurai thing where they both swipe past each other, and it's just the beat fall.
Yeah,
it's classic Kurosawa.
It's so classic to almost be like, I don't know, rote. It's just such a trope.
But you need it. Like it's a thing where it's like, if it wasn't there, I'd be like, no. And it's cool when he takes his shirt off and he's got the Yakuza tattoo on his back, and I don't know. It's you want to see it. I feel like the response would be like, we had to, right?
The camera pans down on the windy grass as both bodies lie there bleeding. Like it is straight up Kurosawa stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's you basically can't introduce a katana in a movie without getting a little Kurosawa on it, right? I mean, he just defined the visuals of what that kind of combat looks like.
Mm-hmm. For good or for ill. In this case, yeah. I think it's fine. It's isolated.
It doesn't go on too long. I think that's another thing about it too. Is it isn't it's appropriate. It's so Look, I'm looking at like all the promotional photos, and yep, there's Robert Rodriguez, who I just can't. I don't get a sense of how involved he was. It seems like really, really involved, but for his credits are interesting that he doesn't have, because the script is credited to Alex Litvak and Michael Finch.
Michael Finch?
Yeah. Michael Finch worked on... Michael Finch wrote The November Man with Pierce Brosnan. I saw that. And just recently wrote John Wick Chapter 4.
Okay.
And apparently has written the new Highlander movie that Cavill's doing.
All right, well, we'll see about that. I don't know.
That's also from the director of the John Wick franchise, so that makes sense. And then
Highlander is always one of those films where I have always staunchly been of the opinion, same with The Warriors, never remake that film.
Yeah. I will say, I mean...
because they're so of their time.
I think you really have to reimagine it if you're going to do it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Stahelski and Cavill being involved do have me interested, because those guys are great. But we'll see. Well, we shall see.
Do I want to see Henry Cavill shirtless in a kilt? Yes, but
but first I want to see him in a giant robot because he's doing the Voltron movie.
Well, no. First, I want to see him in a set of power armor because he's doing Warhammer 40,000 for Amazon.
Yeah, that's apparently in trouble, though. I don't know. We'll see. I hope.
Well, what? You think a giant space opera that introduces dozens of characters that can only be realized with CG is going to be a problem, John?
Yeah, apparently Amazon is shocked that that's going to cost a fortune.
A movie set in the grim darkness of the 40th millennia, in which there is only war against an endless tide of aliens. That is a little bit one of those things.
It's like, you were going to save money on that? Okay, interesting. That was an interesting choice.
Exactly.
Anyway, so this movie does definitely leave off in a we'll see you next time, folks.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about I mean, the end of this movie feels like the end of a like TV show, just like, and then the continuing adventures of two characters.
I mean, yeah. I don't know how I would have rather had it end in some ways, though. I mean, like, right? I mean, it's sort of this idea about like, okay, they've survived the hunt in the moment, and they're on to the next thing. I mean, I do like the idea of it sort of being like a what now ending, but it really is. He's just like, now we got to get off this goddamn planet.
Yeah, you don't want it to have like the strictly happy ending, because no Predator movie has had.
If they had actually gotten in the ship and flown off and been like course set for Earth, that would have felt wrong.
Yeah, but yeah, to answer your question, I don't know how I want. This one just felt a little like ellipses to me. It felt like it trailed off.
I mean, it was very much that. I think Brody had a contract for 3 of these. I think that definitely there was an intention to make this chapter 1 of something.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
I like that we do have like our 2 central characters survive at the end. I think it maybe would have been a little too harsh to kill one or the other.
Well, because it's not that franchise either, right? It's not going to have a completely happy ending, but it's also not going to have an incredibly bleak ending either.
Well, because every Predator movie has ended with our main character standing, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Right?
It's like
Arnold, it's him covered in ash in the fallout of the nuclear explosion. In Danny Glover, he's like stumbling away from the spaceship taking off.
Right. Yeah. It's, that's the vibe you want in these things. So I think it has that vibe. I really do think it's the line about like, all right, next move, Yeah. See you in the sequel, everybody.
If it was just them like sharing haunted glances as we see the new parachutes beginning to fall, I think that might have been a more effective ending.
I mean, that ending of just like, here we go again, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like it implies sort of a psycho beginning again. I don't know,
or a sort of like doomed, like, well, we barely survived that, and now a fresh hell is starting. There's no way we're getting out of here.
Right. Yeah. And then that's like, that could be setting up for a sequel, or that could just be sort of the note it ends on. But
exactly.
But overall, I like this movie a lot.
I really dig this movie. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It is a clean, like, hour 47 with credits.
Yep.
So
it's like an hour 40.
We're in, we're out. Yeah.
No, I think it's really efficient. A lot like the first movie. It's really efficient. Does just enough character work. It's got great action sequences. I like all the new additions to the Predator mythos that also don't feel like, here's your new Predator mythos. Like some of the AVP stuff got bogged down and like, we got to talk about this. We got to show flashbacks. We got,
Yeah, I mean, this movie doesn't really go into it, but this whole concept of like a Predator caste system that it just sort of flippantly introduces. I like the world building here of just like, oh yeah, there's complexity to these weirdo super hunter aliens that we've been dealing with, that like we as the fallout of whatever their culture is built around in terms of hunting culture, like we are not even privy to all that's going on behind the scenes here.
And I kind of
nor should we be, really.
Yeah, well, we might be.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Strap in.
I know a little bit about what happens in the Predator.
Yeah.
Based on conversations with you and just like unavoidable stuff on the internet.
Yeah. It's a
I'm
flawed movie.
I'm thrilled to talk about it.
Yeah. It's a flawed movie.
Not to watch the movie.
I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. We also know it's a severely compromised movie. A lot of studios.
Shane Black has said as much.
Yeah. Let's get into. I can do this segment because I actually do have a review. Hey, I know what you're thinking. What'd Roger Ebert think of this movie?
What did Roger Ebert think of this movie?
Well, he didn't love it, Gorgoni. He didn't love it.
I'm not surprised.
Here's just the little blurb from the Metacritic summation of his review. The movie is mostly about our nasty heroes being attacked by terrifying antagonists and incomprehensible muddles of lightning-fast special effects. It lacks the quiet suspense of the first Predator, and please don't even mention the AVP pictures, which lack the subtlety of Mothra versus Godzilla.
Wow. The subtlety of Mothra and Godzilla. Well, look,
They didn't
Mothra
long for
vs.
those days.
Godzilla is a contemplative tale about man's hubris in trying to contain certain aspects of nature, so I get that.
And of course, let's look at where we talked a little bit about what this movie made, where it landed in the box office for 2010. Grigoni, as always, I'll ask for your guess of where you think it landed on the top 200. As always, I have here
For the
year 2010. Where did it land in the top 200 grossing movies?
And you said it made like 150?
127.2.
127.2. It's 2010.
Mhm.
So this is the same year that Thor comes out.
No, this is the same year Iron Man 2 is the Marvel release.
Iron Man 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Obviously, the Minions have arrived and dominate box offices from here until the end of time.
I'll say this: Despicable Me came out this year. It opened at it was the 9th highest grossing movie of the year.
All right. I'm gonna say Predators
Mm-hmm.
is going to be 31st.
Oh God, they wish. 55th.
Oh no!
55th.
Buddy.
Just after the Adjustment Bureau, but just before the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Ooh, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Yeah.
God, I hate that film so much.
I'm not a fan, and I'm a big at least the first couple Nightmare fan. I'm a big Elm Street guy. I love Freddy
I don't
Krueger.
use the term hate lightly when it comes to films. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a very hyperbolic word.
Yep.
I genuinely hate the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street because they used CG to replicate practical effects that were done in the first
So
film.
you're watching just worse looking versions of great things where you're like, dude, the 80s did this better.
Yeah,
don't
100%.
Both I say I really dislike that, and I also hated the Friday the 13th remake as well. But that's, anyway.
I have less of a problem with that one because I
Sure.
have less of a kinship to that franchise.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street, like trippy dream demons stuff, is like my jam when it comes to slashers.
Yeah, I think I might go ahead and just say this now. When we get to Campbell and Jones Meet the Slashers, I think you might be our Krueger correspondent over there.
Oh boy, okay. It's been a while since I've watched some of those films, but New Nightmare will always be my favorite just for how meta it is.
It's great. I love New Nightmare as well. I'm a Dream Warriors guy because the Dream Warriors.
Sure.
Yeah. Not gonna sleep till we're dead. Okay.
Man, didn't break the top 50. That's sad.
Yeah, but still, it's. I mean, of 200, it is.
What was the number one movie of 2010?
The number one movie of 2010 was Toy Story 3.
Oh, that tracks. Okay.
$1 billion that made. Disney had the number 1 and 2 movie this year, and they both made over $1 billion. And the second one will surprise you because it's Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland.
I always forget how well that one did.
It made over $1 billion.
That is so upsetting.
It's not like an atrocious movie, but it's not a great movie by any stretch.
You talk about like my dislike of CG over practical effects, and that's basically that whole movie.
Well, it's just a movie that just doesn't need to exist, and it's one of those where I was talking about. I'm a huge Tim Burton fan, but you can sometimes tell when he's not jazzed, and that's what that feels like to me. Where it's like he doesn't feel like he really has a take or is thrilled to be doing this. Or anyway, and then rounding out your top 5 are Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1.
That tracks.
Inception. Remember that this was the year where Inception was just we were obsessed. That movie was everything.
That was the movie that like kind of proved that Christopher Nolan could make a ton of money outside of Batman. Right?
Yeah, that sort of starts to establish Nolan as an entity, like unto himself.
Yeah.
And then, of course, because it's 2010, lest we forget, it was still huge. Shrek Forever After. Isn't that crazy?
Is that the one where he goes into an alternate
Yep.
timeline?
Yep, that's the It's a Wonderful Life one. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But I like...
Why do I know that?
In my memory, that was like, oh, those things really fell off a cliff. Nope, that one still made $752 million. Yeah. Iron Man 2, weirdly, number 7. I would have thought that was higher.
No, I mean the Marvel movies weren't a proven thing yet.
They were big, but they weren't. They were big, but they weren't on top of the world quite yet. It's an interesting thing.
2012 Avengers is when it cemented as just like, oh, this is just the culture now.
Yeah, and also it's a thing where it's like the Avengers movie. It tends to be when they put everybody together, those are the ones that make $1 billion. The individual characters, not as much. Well, there you go. Let's get some highs and lows, right? We like this movie. What did other people think? Other than Roger Ebert, obviously.
I mean, look, I'm sure a lot of the highs here are going to be opinions similar to ours.
Yeah.
And or the 10-star reviews you inevitably get, which are just like, people shouldn't be so serious about this.
Well, how about I got to say, I think I found exactly the tone you would expect, and also from the person you'd expect, because this comes to us from IMDb user Megatron1234.
Well, that's our people. I
guess. Man. I see you, Megatron. And the review is just titled "Predators Rocks!" 5 exclamation points. And the first sentence, very simply put, this could have been the whole review. This movie was sweet.
I mean, yeah, that's it. We're done. We're out. This movie is sweet.
There's a little more, but both a nice retelling and a sequel of the first Predator movie. Some people don't like this movie because not a lot of action. I hate that. There's more to an action movie than the action. There's suspense and build-up. This movie had those. They brought back the music from the first one, kind of modernized it, and had scenes and lines similar to the first to try and please the Predator fan. There were a lot of echoes of the first movie. We didn't really talk about that. It doesn't.
It starts with the little tapping rhythm in the like.
Yeah. Oh, a funny thing I did read was they originally wanted to do the 21st century or the 20th Century Fox logo, have it start and then go to the thermal vision version of it, and Fox was like, "No, don't fuck with our logo." Wow. That's a weird thing because that sounds kind of like a cool thing a movie would do, but. They're like, no.
One of my favorite things in films is how many times they've messed with like the Universal logos.
Yeah, I know. I like that. I just love the idea that Fox is like, no. And that's a pretty small thing. It would have just been the same logo, but in whatever. So anyway, worked for me. While making this movie, the writers and staff, I love the idea of the staff of a movie makes me very... The film staff...
Technically, that's what Robert Rodriguez was, right?
Yeah. We're told to only use the first Predators reference, which is why it is so similar. I love the way they brought back Long Tall Sally by Little Richard at the credits. They did do that. That was cool, which is what opens the first movie. Nice homage to the helicopter scene from the first one. The acting was good, and so are the lines. I'll say this. This is a weird note. This next note is a weird note from Megatron1234. But it could have done without the 30-plus F words. I mean, come on, man.
Look. Violence is fine. Language is what's going to ruin the youth.
The violence is so sweet, man. But hey, do we have to curse so much? The ending to me was a disappointment, though. They don't go further into it. I wonder if it's the same thing we were talking about.
I mean, kind of the same, yeah.
Yeah. So all in all, really good movie. If you're not picky about redone scenes from the original and redone music, 10 out of 10 stars forever and ever! Exclamation point.
Forever and ever.
I love this movie to the moon and back, dog.
I made a friendship bracelet for me in this movie.
Yeah. Well, this person, though, this next reviewer, maybe they didn't care for it as much. This comes to us from Lilo Anella, sorry, is what it is. And you gotta love any review where the title of the review starts with, ugh. What a way to ruin the Predator reputation.
Oh, okay.
That's the title of the review. By the way, there are plenty of other ones that use ugh. There's another review that's just called ugh, what a piece of crap. All right, here we go. After reading the reviews and watching the trailer, I was excited to see the movie. One word, ... Terrible. Have you ever started watching a movie and it didn't start off very good, but you think to yourself, I did just pay $10 to see this movie. I'll just stick it out. I'm sure it gets good. Then as you continue on in the movie, the writing gets worse. The music doesn't fit, and the acting is questionable. But again, you think, okay, it's been like 45 minutes. I'm sure it's going to get good now. it's really too late to leave. What if I leave and then it gets good? No, I'll just stay. And the movie continues to get worse and worse, and by the end you're upset and think, okay, this is the end. Please redeem yourself. Dazzle me. Ugh, the ending is god-awful. You walk out of the movie theater feeling disgusted for falling for such a sham. Then this supposed action film starts playing this completely random song that sounds like Rockin' Robin. What? Didn't this battle just happen between human and predator, and now you're playing a Rockin' Robin sound-alike song? Odd, cheesy, cliche, predictable, and out of place. They spend more time showing the entire cast come through a door rather than showing them make traps, which they do out of the blue start talking about. They see our traps. What? What traps? You didn't see them make any traps. No, but I did spend 2 minutes watching the entire cast climb through a door. If you start watching the movie and you start getting that feeling like, this is terrible, I'm sure it will get good, I suggest you trust your gut, leave before you reach the halfway point, and get your money back. Epic fail. 1 out of 10 stars.
You know what the most ridiculous part of that review was? The notion that I'm only paying $10 to see a movie.
Well, it
really gets under my skin.
Yeah. It was 14 years ago.
I know, and that makes my skin crawl.
What does a movie ticket go for anymore? I say this only because I think we both have the Regal Unlimited. I don't actually know what the
it depends on how you're seeing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, matinee prices. But also if you go to the daytime shows, they're cheaper. But I think it's over
$16.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be over 15 now. I mean, it has gotten ridiculous. People wonder why people go to movies less. I think that's a big part of it. I think there's a lot of reasons, but I do think the cost is part of it. What's the point?
I will say, word for word, this review describes my experience with Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. So I can't totally fault them for having this reaction. I've had the same thought process in a movie before.
And for me, it was Independence Day Resurgence. Yeah, right. I was
we've all been there. I get it. It's just a matter of taste.
But I'm like, but there are things that are just, you don't have to like the movie, but the acting's not bad. It's just not. These are all really good actors. I don't know. There are things to rag on. That's the one that really got me. You can get into the script and whatnot, and whether or not I think the traps thing is a little maybe a little
I did notice that this time around because that's right when Topher Grace is about to get chased by the bug man.
Yeah.
And they say, "Oh, it's our traps." And I go, "Wait, hold on, what traps?"
Sure. And for some people,
I just didn't dwell on it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with for some, it's the plot holes people, right? Too, where it's just everything has plot holes. Just whether you let that ruin the movie for you is kind of up to you at a certain point, or what you can take. But the acting is the one that gets me. You're just it's just objectively not bad. I'm sorry, I don't know. You can say you didn't like the people, but that's a different matter.
It's the fine line between look, we're also in an action movie. When all of these people had their chutes deploy that close to the ground, they should all be dead.
Yeah.
Topher Grace would have had his spine jerked in half
Right, it's always an interesting thing when you get into the genre stuff about okay, but you let this go, but not that, and this and that, right? It's an interesting. I'm always fascinated by where people start drawing lines on stuff, right?
Totally unrealistic. And they're also on an alien planet being
what?
Predator.
Yeah, if you're counting ammo in this or something too, you're I mean, come on. So yeah, fascinating there. We talk about eras, Gorgani. Strap in, because we're about to get Sir Ridley back in here.
We're in for a bit of a stretch of movies that are going to make me go, okay.
Yeah, because a movie I know we definitely saw in the theater together is Prometheus.
Yeah. What if scientists were stupid, John?
This is one of those movies where sometimes I'm being a horror movie fan and people talk about, these characters are stupid. But I will say this is one where even I was like, all right, this character's really dumb. They're making really stupid decisions. Let's see. This is a good tagline, though. I'll say this. And actually, the whole promotion of this movie, of course, was amazing. I was jazzed going into it.
It got us into the theater.
Yeah. They went looking for our beginning. What they found could be our end. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was, and it was like, oh, I mean, because we had been so disappointed, it was like, oh, Papa Ridley's coming back to get everything back on track. And little did we know he was going to get it on track, but it was a completely different track.
It was not the track we thought it was.
Oh.
We thought we were going westbound. Ridley's going eastbound, and we're on the train with him no matter what we want.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about this. What I didn't know until we really were doing this series is like, this is the movie he was always pitching.
Yeah.
This was always
behind
his
the
vision.
scenes every time he was circling back around to this.
What if we went back to how the Xenomorph started? Well, you get your chance, Ridley. Let's see what you got. We already have.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that next week. Of course, if you want more from this show and all the shows on the Punch Up Entertainment Network, you can want to head over to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/punchupent. That's punchup, E-N-T. There you get cool exclusive bonus shows, including the patron exclusive sort of spin-off show of this called IP Squad Related Cases. In this case, we're talking about Alien and Predator homages, if you're kind, knockoffs, if you're not.
2 out of 3 knockoffs, 1 homage. We'll say.
There you go. That's it. So head over there to listen to those. And of course, Gorgoni, where else can people check us out?
Why, John, our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/@punchupentertainment. There you can find all of our shows in the most premium second screen experience this side of the internet, as well as some YouTube exclusive stuff, which maybe you should put your eyes on instead of just your ears. And that includes Punch Up Plays, the video game series that Elliot Lewis and I do. You can watch the video version of the show you and I do, May the Panel Be With You, and read those comics, Star Wars comics, along with us. There's also it's probably wrapped up by now, but the series you did with your sister covering all of the Hallmark Channel holiday films.
You can look back on the year that was in Hallmark Channel holiday films.
But all of that and even more, while you're there, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell down there somewhere. You can't see me pointing because this version is audio only,
right?
But
there's
a bell somewhere on a page, and I need you to ring it. It's so important.
Yeah. But that's going to do it until next week. The case file is closed.